Thousands of British people have been suddenly carted off from Britain to another state in the EU without reference to our judges by an EU police force using an EU arrest warrant. When I first queried this arrest warrant, I sent it to my MP, Mr. Gove, and he passed it on to the Department of Foreign Affairs or wherever it went. And they wrote back to me about a month later saying there was no such thing. Yet, a few days later, when I was watching the PMQs, the Prime Minister's Question Time, there was a question from the floor. What about all the British people thousands odd of British people who have been sent from Britain to an EU state where B juris is enforced? That means you are guilty till proven innocent, whereas we have habeas corpus where we are innocent till proven guilty. And he said he would look into the matter and report back to Parliament. Now, what I can't understand is why they would try to mislead me like that. Or is this all part of the EU position where everything is done by stealth and try to keep it in a situation where the horses will not be frightened? We have to stop the wasted billions being sent to the EU. Stop endless laws that have destroyed our competitiveness and initiative, that have stripped us of our once formidable armed forces because we have no money. There's lots more in my presentation that I think people should know about. What I want to know is, where are the justifiable howls of rage at the fact that for the 18th year in a row, the EU books were not signed off? In a fit of honesty a few years ago, the EU Court of Auditors admitted up to 95% of the budget is unaccounted for. Well, that is missing. Subsequent to that, there was 4 Conservatives who queried money being sent to the Middle East. And they had difficulty in getting the right to go and check it out. When they did finally get the right, which was wrong, they should have got it immediately, but they had to battle for months, they in actual fact found there was no paper trail, no audit trail. And they could not find out what happened to the millions that had been sent, because the accusation was that the money had been sent for for medical purposes and food, etc. Instead, it was being used for arms. So for 18 years in a row, up to 95% of the 55 million a day we send, only 2.5 million of our daily contribution can be found by the auditors. Neither the Labour, Conservatives or Liberals said a thing. Membership fees alone are costing us each £333 a year in taxes, and no one knows where all this money is going. If we leave the EU, Britain will have billions in its bank. But look at the figures and weep. The Department of Trade confirm a 50 billion deficit. In other words, we buy more from them than they from us. Membership fees of 20 billion. Taxpayers Alliance, which allied with a university to get these figures, analysed our trade figures and found that an additional 120 billion for red tape and added manufacturing costs because of the laws and regulations that bind people and hold them down and stop them from being efficient. That's a total of 190 billion. Annual cost of interest we pay on the national debt of somewhere around about 3 trillion, which is known as the deficit, that is the amount we pay on interest alone, is 120 billion a year. If we subtract the 120 billion from the 190 billion mentioned above, which is made up of the 50 billion, the 20 billion, the 120 billion, then we will, and as can be seen, we will have an extra 70 billion to play with. What can we do with that? We must get our country going again. To give you some perspective, it is our duty to clear Parliament. When I say vote for UKIP, I want to make this very clear. I do not regard UKIP or Farage as a messiah or miracle worker. Please understand that. However, this may be the last time we can get our nation back, as recent laws in the EU, which our present Parliament passed, that our traitorous MPs have accepted. After this requires to ask 27 nations in the EU for permission to have a referendum. Can you believe it? Pigs will fly before they grant us that. In May, vote for UKIP. They're the only party that has the resonance with the British people and is ready to do the job. No other party will. As you can see, Farage has been controlling the whole agenda of Parliament from outside. Now he's got 2 MPs in. What we need is anything up to 130 MPs, if we can get them, anything from 40 minimum, to try and start being kingmakers in that next Parliament after May. We have got to do something. No matter how you feel right now, we should have our country. Ask the Jews what it's like if you lose your country. Go and ask them. We must get rid of the millstone around our neck. The EU is certainly a millstone around our British necks. We were never asked about this. We were told it was only to be a trading bloc. That was what the common market was. And when that changed, they had every right to come back to the British people and say, no, we are now joining an empire that is going to affect everything in this country. That is what they should have done. Instead, they have lied and deceived us to such a degree, it's pretty obvious. I mean, I don't think these men seem to understand, especially in this internet era, how bad they look when they lie to us, you know. Many times we've heard, for instance, Cameron saying, well, I'll give you a referendum, give you a referendum, give you a referendum. And then, just before the election, when everybody's heard this time after time, he changes his mind and says, no, there's not going to be a referendum. So hardly anybody heard that. And he said that it was because the president of Czechoslovakia signed the agreement. I don't know what the president of Czechoslovakia's signature on a document has anything to do with this nation. He was required to do that. He promised, and so did 2 other prime ministers. It just is very bad form. And then when I wrote to Hammond, who is my MP, and said to him, well, this referendum that he promised, and Hammond wrote back to me and said in his letter, well, we never promised the referendum in our document before the election. And I wrote back and I said to him, I agree, you didn't. But then again, you didn't bring in you didn't mention anything about the Gay Marriage Act either. So why did you bring the one in and not the other? Because the people wanted the referendum, not the Gay Marriage Act. And it just goes on and on. He said, for instance, he would hand over no more powers to Europe without a referendum. What does he do as soon as he gets into office? He handed over the monitoring and regulation of the banks to the European Union. Now, there's nothing more important in how you earn your money. That's very important to me, to you, to everybody, and especially a nation like this. We have one of the biggest banking sectors on the face of the earth. Why would you want to hand the monitoring and regulation of that over to countries that don't have anything like we have and are jealous of it? Why would you do that? What for? And he said he would not hand any power over. And I'll tell you how important this is. A man like Rockefeller, who knows something about banking and something about money, said, I care not who makes the laws, provided I issue the currency. And that's exactly what the banks do in many cases, like the Royal Bank of Scotland, etc. The government loans them the money to get it out into the world. Yet we've handed the regulation of that over to a bunch of people who have never seen anything like this amazing business that we have in London. What for? I just don't understand it. They have lied and they've deceived us It is completely unacceptable. We, the British people, must use our votes. We don't have a guy like Oliver Cromwell anymore. The result of all this is that our fishing industry has been decimated. They've come in with these big factory ships and trawled the bottom and destroyed a lot of the fishing areas, etc. Fishing areas that we had, looked after for years. Then, while all this is going on, they force us to throw back fish that have been caught back into the sea. So they've got to be refished again to try and get cod. Now, the nets are not very selective. They catch cods or catch anything that's in the way. I mean, how crazy. And the fishermen kept on telling him, this is a wrong policy. What have we done? We've stripped our wonderful fishing areas that we've looked after. Look at, as I already mentioned, about the banking. Manufacturing. I mean, our manufacturing has been decimated by the rules and regulations, which a lot of people don't even understand they're there. But how do they put the European Union together? If you want ships, you go to Germany, or you go to France, or you go to Italy. If you want cars, you go to Germany, who have the manufacturing of Mercedes, BMW, etc. And of course you've got Italy with manufacturing, and for France. The British car industry had to be given away. And we did for £1, apparently. We didn't give it away for £1, but that is the exchange. When you do a leverage buy it, you've got to confirm it with a bit of money, the deal. That whole fantastic industry ended up in China. All the robot machines, etc. So we lost whole skills. In the shipbuilding industry, remember the skills we had to make big. We were the ones who made the first big ships, these huge container ships. What have we done? We've lost all that. All we do now is manufacture military ships. How can this generation allow this? This generation has destroyed this nation. We were handed from the previous generations a wonderfully balanced, powerful little nation that could take on the world. And what have we done? We have given that all away. There is no Oliver Cromwell today to clear Parliament with his army. So we, the British people, must use our votes to clear Parliament of traitors, career MPs who sat on their hands while our nation was handed over and our laws affected, yet they knew that wasn't supposed to happen. And they call us fools and idiots because we oppose them. No, we're not. But we accept that, provided they accept the appendage on their name, traitors. Where is our unwritten constitution, the famous unwritten constitution of Britain? The British Constitution was written in the Bible. Our colonial officials used it to govern a vast empire. This nation and our colonial officials were known as the people of the book because our colonial officials carried the Bible wherever they went. In the 1800s, this nation produced 18 tons of Bibles and sent it out to the world. So let us return to the word of Yahweh, our salvation. Thank you for listening. Please tell others and offer this video to them so that they too can understand how short time is. There is so much to tell about where we are in history and where this generation stands and actually where we're heading. We stand on the precipice of huge changes over which no nation, including the most powerful nations, have no control. Thank you.